Hello there, Internet version 2 here with Let's Read Danganronpa 0. It's still weird to say that, just the read concept. Anyway, where we last left off on our PDF adventure, Matsuda had left Ryoko asleep with a bunch of stuff to her head while she tried to fall asleep while the parade was saying, "Don't let us be killed" outside, or something to that effect. So today, we leave off, we continue where we left off, where it seems, based on this first sentence, that we're following Matsuda's perspective. Chapter 4. A short while after leaving the laboratory, Yosuke, I'm gonna always mess that up, Matsuda stood in front of a large door that exuded a solemn atmosphere and straightened his posture. What are you so nervous about? He wanted to mock himself, but at the same time realized nervousness was inevitable. It was the first time he'd ever stepped into Hope Peaks Academy's inner sanctum, the staff building. It was the only building on campus East Quarter that students were forbidden to enter, and sure enough, once he did, he ended up having to explain the situation to several teachers who stopped him along the way. That wasn't enough though. His final destination itself was a special place, even inside this forbidden building. Yosuke Matsuda raised his head and stared at the door in front of him. It was a pretentiously decorated wooden door that gave him a feeling visitors weren't welcome. The metal plate set in it read Hope's Peaks Academy's Steering Committee Meeting Room. This was the inner sanctum's inner sanctum. Even the teaching staff could not just walk in uninvited. Nervousness really was inevitable for someone about to enter such a special room. But, nevertheless, this really isn't like me. Matsuda cleared his throat. He tried to cheer himself up before he ended up swallowed whole by the oppressing atmosphere. Then, he raised his fists and went, "This is Yosuke Matsuda from Hope Peaks Academy's 77th class," he announced, slowly pushing the heavy door open. "Excuse me." The room was as different from a classroom as a room could be. The ceilings, pillars, and walls were excessively decorated, in a way that Matsuda found gloomy. He stepped forward, the sound of his footsteps swallowed by the thick carpet. That is really thick carpet if you can't even hear any steps at all. I mean, the carpets in my workplaces and schools, you could still hear a little pitter-patter. So, yeah, thick carpet. This is opulence and expensiveness, just weird thing to pick up on, yes. "We apologize for calling you here on such short notice." The voice was surprisingly light and cheerful. It belonged to Hope's Peaks Academy. I'm always going to say Hope's Peaks. Hope's Peak Academy's headmaster, Jin Kirigiri. Yay. Every time Matsuda saw the man, he couldn't help but be astounded how young he was. In his mind, a headmaster was a middle-aged man with white hair, a mustache, and a drab suit. Kirigiri, still in his 30s, was just too young for the job, and had Ryoko awfully young then too. Because at this point, Ryoko would be, 16? Damn. I mean, that's about the age for my parents of, having me at 23, so. I mean, I guess, 16, having at 23, they'd be 39, still in the 30s, technically. "Please sit down. It would be easier to have a conversation that way." A large circular table stood in the middle of the room. Antique chairs were lined up all around it. "Excuse me," said Matsuda as he sat on the nearest chair, placing him exactly across the table from Kirigiri. The moment he sat down, he felt several pairs of eyes staring intently at him. They belonged to the 4 old men who sat around the table at set intervals. Every one of them wore a pitch-black suit, as if they were on their way back from a funeral. Their ties were the same color. Their appraising glare felt to Matsuda as if someone was breathing their hot breath down the back of his neck. "Do you know who we are?" The voice was rusty, and Matsuda couldn't tell which old man it belonged to. "You must be the members of Hope's Peak Academy's steering committee. You have our sincere gratitude for all your help with that incident." "I don't know what you're talking about." The wrinkles on the old men's faces deepened. They didn't like dodging around the topic of conversation. "There is no need to be cautious here. We know everything," one of the old men said. "You helped us with the interrogation of the student who first discovered the crime scene, didn't you?" said another. "The student who first discovered the crime scene." The second Matsuda heard those words, his heart began to beat faster. He tried to hide it by asking a question of his own. "Do you intend to try and get more information out of that student?" "Not at all." A different old man shook his hand. "This time, we are dealing with a different student. We have a problem, you see. A problem that someone with your skills can solve. We are looking forward for your help." He talked as if the matter was already settled. That was worrying. "What if I refuse?" A few seconds of silence later, one of the old men started to laugh. It was a quiet laugh at first, but soon the second, third, and then fourth old man joined, filling the room with a scornful laughter. Their voices descended on Matsuda from every angle. So, Matsuda-kun, the laughter suddenly stopped. Do you really believe you have a choice in the matter? The old man spoke in a condescending tone of voice. That girl you've been treating, it seems she's on temporary leave from the school, yet there aren't any signs that she's going to be cured. This time, it was Masuda's wrinkles that deepened as he frowned. What are you trying to say? You are also still a student. We can't have you wasting your time on a dunce with no hope of recovery. His words were overflowing with contempt. The way we see it, we can't keep extending a student's temporary leave when we don't know if she'll be able to return. This faculty's purpose is to nurture talent. Those who are too much of a failure to use it should simply step down, for the other student's sake. That said, if you agree to help us, shut the fuck up, old man. What, you dirty mouths talk too much. The room's atmosphere changed in a second. The air pressure jumped all at once. You bastard! Matsuda stood up and the old man froze. He looked at them as they were worms. No, his stare was much more angry and full of contempt. He looked down at them as they were worms he was about to trample. Dunce? Failure? I should have warned you. I am the only one who's allowed to make fun of her. No one else has any right to. Hey, who do you think I told you to shut up. His tone really did shut them up. He continued speaking in a low voice. That girl, even when people make fun of her, she swipes it off because she thinks it has nothing to do with her. That's why I have to speak up for her. I won't be able to live with myself if I don't. This is interesting to see about Matsuda defending her so valiantly after, the everything. To the ears of the steering committee members, his words carried an indiscernible sense of intimidation. How can we be so overpowered by someone not yet in his 20s? They did not know the answer, because he's an ultimate. They did not understand the power someone who possessed talent had. The power Hope's Peak Academy called Hope. May I interrupt? A slow voice forced its way into the conversation. It was Kirigiri's voice. Matsuda turned his coercive stare towards him. It's just that I think it's time for me to say something. Kirigiri smiled bitterly and scratched his head. Despite the nervous atmosphere that filled the room, he seemed completely calm. Matsuda, having lost his momentum, closed his eyes slowly, let out a heavy sigh, and sat back down. As soon as he was done, Kirigiri continued in a quiet tone. Bad at reading, what can I say? Matsuda-kun, we are merely asking for a favor. Not a favor just for us. Can you consider it a favor to every student of Hope's Peak Academy? Would you please at least consider listening to what we have to say? Matsuda stayed quiet and looked at Kirigiri, unable to judge what the man's true intentions were. Kirigiri, on his part, tried his best to take back control of the situation. I won't ask you to do anything other than listen. If you decide to refuse, we will accept your decision. With the preliminaries done, he moved straight to the topic at hand. I probably do not have to explain to you about that incident, but we should probably still begin there anyway, because people are reading this as it's a novel. Kirigiri cleared his throat, clasped both his hands in front of himself, and continued. It's been a month, and we still can't believe what had happened. Such a gruesome incident taking place inside Hope's Peak Academy. I still feel like we're living in a nightmare. But it really did happen, yelled one of the old men. 13 kids, screamed another. 13 victims, and the details of what happened are still unclear. Why did such a terrible thing happen in our school? When the screaming voices stopped, Matsuda said what had been on his mind. So, you never informed the police? Of course we didn't. What would you think would happen if we did? What would it solve? This is not a problem that can be taken care of by arresting a culprit. But what about the victims' families? We're taking care of that. Yet another old man yelled without skipping a beat. You don't have to worry about such things. Judging by the way he spoke, the academy had already taken measures for dealing with the families. They must have asked some favors from previous graduates. Many of them rose to high positions on the strength of the Hope Speaker brand. If that brand falls from grace, they will also lose it all. You're right. I shouldn't have to worry about that. So, what is it that you want me to do? This other students you were talking about? They must have something to do with the incident as well, right? We want you to extract information out of that student that will help clarifying the truth behind this incident, answered Kirigiri. Clarify the truth. Isn't that a contradiction? Didn't you decide to cover up the incident? The cover-up. Matsuda was the only student the faculty trusted with the secret. In exchange for his cooperation, he was awarded a large research grant and equipment for his lab. That was probably another proof that he was a true scientist. But that wasn't the only reason he agreed to cooperate. No one but Matsuda himself knew the other reasons. Yes, it does sound like a contradiction, doesn't it? Answered Kirigiri after a short hesitation. But this is a necessity. We strongly believe that hiding this incident is necessary. But there is too much we still don't know about. We can't hide something we don't completely understand. That's why we think we must find the entire story regarding what happens back then. In order to protect Hope's Peak Academy, this cover-up has to be perfect. Kirigiri said all that without the slightest sign of doubt. He would do anything to protect Hope Peak's Academy. He's just like me, isn't he? Matsuda thought. Sacrificing something to protect something else. That's exactly what I'm also doing right now. So who is this student you want me to interrogate? Kirigiri licked his dry lips and gave Matsuda a cautious answer. We didn't tell you this before, but other than the first discoverer of the crime scene, there are 2 additional survivors. 2 survivors. Sure enough, that was the first time Matsuda heard about them. They are indispensable for discovering the truth about the incident, of course. Had all been well, we should have questioned them immediately after we were done with the crime scene's discoverer, but because of certain circumstances, we couldn't do that. Circumstances? One of them has been in a coma since the incident. The other, thankfully, came out unhurt, but went missing soon after. We do not know where that student is right now. 1 comatose student and 1 missing student. The circumstances were indeed severe, but there was still a possibility. You want me to try and get information from the comatose student, don't you? Kirigiri nodded. Exactly. Finding the truth in order to hide it. It was certainly a twisted thing to do, but it was also very convenient for Matsuda. This is probably my chance to protect her. I understand, he said. He had no other choice. I'll see what I can do. Do you think you can do something? One of the old men quickly relaxed and tried to regain authority. It's still too early to tell. It depends on the student's exact condition. I will try my best in any case. Matsuda answered bluntly and returned to face Kirigiri. But what about the missing student? You aren't just going to sit here doing nothing, are you? After a short silence, Kirigiri bent forward and looked straight into Matsuda's eyes. Is something worrying you? His gaze was sharp, and Matsuda felt as if he could read his innermost thoughts. Wanting to escape it, he retracted quickly. No, I was just curious. His voice was shaky, and he continued in an effort to hide it. I mean, a missing student is far too suspicious, isn't it? Don't you think they could be the culprit who killed 13 students and left 1 in a coma? The old man immediately started rustling, their whispers reverberating through the meeting room. Kirigiri alone kept his cool. It's just as you say, the way things look, that student is extremely suspicious. In that case what? Kirigiri interrupted forcefully. It just justifies covering up this incident even more. If we don't, it's going to be the end of this school. The end of this school? Matsuda was intrigued by Kirigiri's expression. Does that mean that the student who has gone missing is someone special? A certain name suddenly found itself floating in the back of Matsuda's mind. He had heard the name only in rumors and in occult stories he always thought were urban legends. But if that person really exists, they may very well be involved in this incident. If that's the case, it all makes sense. It even makes sense calling this incident the worst incident in Hope's Peak Academy's history. It makes sense, but it's also terrible. A single drop of sweat fell down from Matsuda's temple as he whispered those words deep inside his heart. Chapter 5! So again, yeah, Matsuda can do fucked up shit with people's brains and read their minds and manipulate them and everything. The steering committee seem like bumbling fools. Like, they seem panicky a lot, which for a steering committee is a bit weird, where it's just like, they're panicky so much. That's why they, like, Kirigiri keeps his calm, which makes sense, because we know the other Kirigiri, and that's exactly what they're like. But the steering committee seems like, shit. I jumped to my feet at the sudden pain of my skull being pulled violently and saw a boy standing at my bedside with a jumble of cords attached to suction cups in his hands. My heart started beating faster. We know exactly what we're doing here because it's changed back to first person. It's Matsuda-kun, isn't it? Isn't it? Not wasting a second, I leaped straight into him, but just like a matador, he nimbly stepped aside. My head crashed into the wall as if I was the coyote tricked by the roadrunner. The references. I could see stars spinning around my head. Why are you avoiding me? Because you have a swollen face. You can't go calling a girl's face swollen. I turned to my shaky feet and peeked into a mirror I found on top of one desk. My face was packed with violent blue specks the size of small coins. Swollen, sure enough. But that's because you pulled those suction cups on my face so violently, Matsuda-kun. I was in a hurry. Oh, I wouldn't mind if you go right here. I'm not in a hurry because I have to use the toilet. Of course, how silly of me. Matsuda-kun never has to use the toilet at all. What do you even think I am, ugly? You're the most sublime being in human history, of course. Don't include me in your ridiculous delusions. Like, he will go to so much lengths to protect her, but he tortures the shit out of her. Why? Matsuda-kun exhaled a big breath, as if giving up. I had enough. If I keep talking to you, I'd go weird in the head too. He started tidying up the trolley. Anyway, I have more business to attend to today. Go home, quickly now. But why? Naturally, I strongly objected to the proposition. I don't wanna, I'd be lonely. Honestly, you're such an annoying girl. Matsuda-kun narrowed his eyes and slowly stepped in front of my face. He grasped both of my shoulders tenderly. Close your eyes. Just do it. Close them. As my heart beat rhythmically at Matsuda-kun's drawing near before my eyes, I did as I was told and closed them. My entire body became hot. I felt as if I was about to melt. The blood vessels behind my ears pulsed violently. The situation could only mean one thing, right? It's a terrible cliche, but what else could it be? It is, isn't it? It is. Then, the anticipation made my heart go boom, boom, boom. I felt Matsuda-kun moving behind me. Before I could even wonder what was going on, he started pushing me forward. In a second, I was thrown out the corridor. Ow! I collapsed on the corridor's floor from the excessive force of Matsuda-kun's shove. It was a small mercy that I had clean underpants on. The next treatment is in 3 days. Be a good girl and stay in your room. Don't go out on needless walks, said Matsuda-kun before I could even get up. Then he shut the door loudly behind him. He tricked me. My shoulders dropped. But since there was nothing I could do, I simply left the neurology lab, crestfallen. As I exited the biology building, the first thing I did was check my notebook. I had to go back to the dorms, but since I forget where they were, I flipped through the pages of Ryouko Otonashi's memory notebook as I walked. Eventually, I found the school map it seemed I drew all by myself. I guess it's a good time to do a full-scale review of my notes and explain in full picture regarding Hope's Peak Academy. Whew. Here we go. According to my map, Hope's Peak Academy campus is shaped like a large diamond. It's divided into 4 quarters, east, west, south, and north, each the size of a full-scale regular high school. They're like 4 times the size of 4 high schools. Freaking universities are the size of like 20 of them. The east quarter, through which I walked now, was the heart of the academy, where the buildings and facilities used by the main school are located. Many of its buildings were still under construction, but there were also several magnificent, envy-inducing research buildings for various fields, much like Matsuda-kun's biology building. In addition, it seemed this quarter is also home to the staff building, which students are forbidden to enter. Then there's the west quarter. It seems the buildings and facilities for the preparatory school are located there, but I don't think I've ever visited it. Unfortunately, there isn't much written in my notebook about it. The south quarter is where Hope's Peak Academy students' dormitories are. In addition, it seems there's a convenience store, a bookstore, and various other shops where necessary supplies can be brought. By the way, it seems only students belonging to the main school are allowed to live in the dorms, and that's a special perk that doesn't even cost money. Then there's the north quarter, which apparently is currently vacant. The only thing left there is the old school building, which was still in use until just recently. For the time being, it seems it's been left neglected, so naturally entrance is forbidden. In other words, there isn't much to say about it. Okay, so quick question. The old school building, is that where Danganronpa 1 takes place? Because everything else that we just saw described does not match Danganronpa 1 at all. I'm guessing the old school building is where Danganronpa 1 takes place? Because Danganronpa 1 has its own gym, it has its own bedrooms, it has its own like little lab areas, it has its own little areas for different things. There's not as many classrooms in there. It would make sense if that was before it became the really big school that it is now. So is Danganronpa 1 in the old school? The one that we see where Makoto's looking up at the big one building. Is that the north corner in the old school building? And then all of the other 3 quarters are all of the new shit? Because the description of the west quarter doesn't match Danganronpa 1's setting at all. Because Danganronpa 1 seems to have, like, everything that the school needs seems to be in that one building. Where this is talking about giant buildings, each for their own individual purpose, which doesn't match Danganronpa 1 at all. Finally, at the very center of the campus, surrounded by 4 quarters, is the Central Plaza, a large park-like space overgrown with trees. It's often used as a relaxation area for the other students, but it appears entry is forbidden between 10 at night and 7 in the morning. Well, I don't plan on walking around in the middle of the night, so it seems it has nothing to do with me. And so, thanks for the information-packed hand-drawn map, I managed to make my way to the dorm safely. Then, ignoring the greetings of the students who passed me by in the corridor, I went straight to my room. When I entered the room, I was met with stickers reading, "This is my room," stuck all around. Yep, this is the right place, there's no question about it. After confirming this important fact, I stood near the doorway for a while, staring into space, but No matter how much I tried, I couldn't think of anything I wanted to do. So eventually I simply collapsed into my bed. Nevertheless, it seems I already took a midday nap somewhere because I couldn't fall asleep. Doesn't remember falling asleep at the biology lab. Reluctantly, I decided to kill some time. For me, killing time means exactly one thing. I took out Ryouko Otonashi's memory notebook and, still lying on the bed, started flipping through its pages. Everything that's written down in this notebook is the undeniable truth, but I can't remember any of it. In other words, it feels like I'm reading a non-fiction book about myself. The excitement of experiencing my own past vicariously is an amazing form of entertainment that only someone as forgetful as myself can enjoy. Oh man, that experience there, not to the extent that it is here. Me watching my old Let's Plays is exactly this. Total side note and getting so distracted here. The number one reason that I try and focus on a lot of blind LPs and games that I'm really excited for new releases, I do blind LPs of, especially certain ones like Breath of the Wild. The main reason that I do a blind LP of it is to remember what my initial reactions were, and it means that I can go back and watch that LP again and be like, oh yeah, this is when I did this, and everything like that, to capture that first time feeling again. And because my memory is so bad, I'll forget how that playthrough went. So I am kind of vicariously living through a past version of myself to do that. That is a big reason of why I stick to blind LPs. And also just because my commentary styling works better to react to new things and to reflect and comment and analyze new things as opposed to past things. But I still enjoy just going back through old games that I really like. Anyway, I'm getting really distracted, but it's fine. Every side thing that I've talked about has nothing to do with Zero. I read about what I talked with Matsuda-kun about and what he said to me. Most of the notebook was about Matsuda-kun, but that's exactly what makes it so much fun. Then, as I continued flipping through the notebook, my eye stopped on one single page. That page was packed with sketches of a boy's face. My heartbeat wasn't as fast as it could be, but it increased slightly in speed. These are probably portraits of Matsuda-kun, but since my heart isn't beating that fast, they're probably not very good likenesses. Maybe I should try to make some amendments? I think the nose is alright. No, maybe it's the eye. I can't really remember what Matsuda-kun's face looks like, but I used my heartbeat as a measure and carefully took to redrawing the sketches. That's probably how bomb disposal personnel feel when they go searching for landmines. No, I guess it's a little different. And so, after messing with the portrait for a little bit, I felt my heart beating a little bit faster than it did before. I did it. I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. If I just continue feeling with the sketch little by little, I'm sure it will eventually look just like the real Matsuda-kun. I probably did the exact same thing before, I just don't remember it. It's just that working in this sketch requires every bit of my concentration, and I can't keep it up for very long. Tired, I placed the notebook next to my pillow and turned till I face up. Then I started to whisper. I want to meet Matsuda-kun. I want to meet Matsuda-kun. I want to meet Matsuda-kun. This level of obsession, it very much feels like Matsuda's fucked with her, and he's like weirdly possessive of her, and that's why he'll do anything to protect her and everything. It's kind of creepy. It was the only thing I could do. Right now, the only thing I could do is whisper deep inside my heart how much I want to meet Matsuda-kun. There is nothing else I can think about, nothing else I can do, nothing else I should do. I can't remember anything else after all, not even my family or my other classmates. For me, the people living in the outside world and what they do feels just like watching a boring stage play from the sidelines. I can't treat them as real beings. I don't even feel I live in the same world they do. Noisy classrooms, sweat-drenched PE lessons, festive lunchtimes, stopping to grab a bite after club activities, sitting on the ground chatting with friends, embarrassing conversations with the family. I can't even feel envy or regret that I'm missing these things out. They simply have nothing to do with me, and that's it. But the only existence keeping me from being entirely cut off from the worlds is Matsuda-kun, and that's why I can't think of anything else but him. I don't stop for a second to think about any other thing. I want to meet Matsuda-kun. I want to meet Matsuda-kun. I want to... Thunk. There was a strange sound, and I came back to my senses. I raised myself from the bed and found a letter shoved under the room's door. It's from Matsuda-kun! It was the logical conclusion to make, and so I jumped to grab the envelope and hurried to read the letter inside. Dear Miss Super High School Level Pitiful Forgetful Girl, I have taken all the precious past memories you have so meticulously chronicled. There are a lot of them, and they all chronicle your past with Yasuke Matsuda. That's the entire weight of your past right here, isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't it? By the way, if you think I am lying, just look under your bed. That's where you stored all your memories, but there isn't even a single one left. That's because I took them all. Well, then, let's get to the main issue. If you want your memories back, come to the fountain in the Central Plaza tonight at 1 a.m. Come alone, of course. It's not like you even have anyone to call, is it? That's fine then. That's all. Thank you for your cooperation. I am looking forward to hearing from you. What the fuck? How did they grab it while she was in the room? Jeez. My body stiffened as I finished reading the letter. It stiffened and yet also quivered like a plate of jelly. In other words, I was so disturbed that the previous smile seemed appropriate. A threat? What's going on? I don't get it. But this problem couldn't be solved with a few questioning lines. First, I have to check under the bed like the letter said. When I hastily did so, there was nothing there. To tell you the truth, I don't even remember storing old notebooks under there. But if I really did and all my past memories of Matsuda-kun were stolen, it's terrible! Oh, so they didn't steal... Okay, so she has multiple notebooks and they just didn't steal a current one. Okay. It means all I have left is this current notebook I hold in my hand. That's all I have left? Just one measly notebook? That's what's more than 15 years of memories amount to. Wait, what? That felt weird to read. Suddenly, a strange feeling descended upon me. Is that what they call a feeling of loss? Until now, that kind of feeling was unfamiliar to the forgetful me. I'm sure people who learn to live with a small wound have to always endure a certain amount of pain, but that wasn't the case for me. I had no idea how to deal with this new pain I currently felt. For the time being, I was simply angry. Whose idea of a prank is this? My voice was strained and shaky, my fist grasping the letter, crumbling it. What? Why? I let my thoughts be led by the anger. Perhaps this is the work of some sleazeball scheming to get between me and Matsuda-kun's love. I think Matsuda-kun is very handsome and looks cool. So many girls must be after him. For such girls, the growing love between us must be an eyesore, so one of them must have succumbed to desperate measures. She took my memories hostage and is probably going to do something to me once I answer her call. Oh, she's such a mean woman. My anger reached its boiling point. I was about to erupt like Mount Etna. But it didn't. See, she's able to remember shit like this, and that's like she remembers something about the freaking Edo period. And it's like, what? It appears that I've even forgotten how to be properly angry. But that was just natural. Someone as uninvolved with the world as I am is a stranger to feelings of anger. Therefore, I had no idea how to funnel it. I guess anger that originates in the imagination alone has its limits. In any case, since I couldn't let my anger out, my feelings rapidly cooled down. I guess I'll just do as the letter asks and think about it later. Having completely cooled down, I lay down on the bed and waited for 1 a.m., the appointed time. I read the letter over and over, so I wouldn't forget what I was waiting for. And then, as the time approached, but this won't turn into a fight, right? It's gonna be okay, isn't it? Harboring these depressing thoughts, I left my room. But it was the central plaza, right? I walked down the pavement with heavy steps, checking the map in Ryoko Otonashi's memory notebook. Pardon me, hiccups. The world at night. Everyone was asleep. Tonight, I was the only person walking about. I could sense not a single other human being in the area. I did sense the presence of things which were not human, but I should probably not think too deeply about that. To tell you the truth, the thought of just going back to my room crossed my mind several times, but leaving my memory stolen did not appeal to me, so my feet reluctantly pushed me forward. After walking for a short while, an iron fence came into view. It was set up to completely block the road I was walking along. According to my notebook, the entry to the Central Plaza is forbidden between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., and that's probably why there's fences here. In other words, if I can't overcome this fence, I won't be able to reach my destination. This time, I seriously thought about going back, but at the last moment made a firm resolution and started climbing the fence. A few moments later, I somehow managed to land on the lawn on the other side. I started walking around the Central Plaza, looking for the fountain I was told to go to. The darkness deepened. It was probably because the area was thick with trees. The same trees that were usually brilliantly sparkling green under the lights of the sun were now painting the plaza pitch black in a starless night. I walked around the darkness for a while, until suddenly my field of vision grew wider. In front of me was a small square. In its center stood a lone street lamp, relatively illuminating its surroundings. Near the lamp, I could see the fountain I was looking for. The water coming out of it made a cute, soft, splashy sound. As soon as my consciousness understood I had reached my destination, my nervousness increased. I stepped slowly toward the fountain with excessive caution, but after just a few steps I stopped in my tracks. I could see someone standing on the other side of the fountain. I could only see the upper half of their body peeking from the shadows of the trees, but it was pretty clear I was looking at a man's back. Excuse me? I boldly raised my voice, but there was no answer. I guess I should just go a bit closer. Leaves rustled under my feet. Nevertheless, the man didn't make any sign he had noticed the noise. I continued stepping forward and raised my voice again. Was it you who called me here? Once again, there was no answer. He couldn't possibly have not heard me. My body became heavy. A growing sense of dread pushed down on both my shoulders. In no time, my tightly fisted hands were covered in sweat. Nevertheless, the lure of mystery pushed me forward, and the contours of the faint figure in front of me gradually became clearer. So I saw a man wearing a suit. His hair was white and his neck covered with countless deep wrinkles. Suddenly, a gust of wind came blowing by. Sway, 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 sway. Swat, swat, swat. Sorry. The man's figure swayed feebly in the wind. Oh, okay. I get what's happening. I felt cold shivers all over my body. They felt as if someone touched the back of my neck with an icy hand. I faintly heard a different part of me yelling at, I faintly heard a different part of me yelling at me to stop inside my brain, but my feet moved on their own accord as I approached the man and looked at his face. Our eyes met. My eyes met the bloodshot red eyeballs bulging out of the man's wide open eyes. His face was pale, and the dark blood vessels on it made an eerie pattern. A tongue that looked like a rotting sea slug hung down from his mouth, reaching the nape of his neck. He was not standing on the ground. He was hanging from a rope around his neck. The rope was now swaying slowly in the wind. That was a sight. It was a sight that, just by witnessing it, could snatch every bit of heat from your body. But this is not the time to write flowery descriptions in my notebook. I should run away. This has nothing to do with me. Drip, drip. Inside, my eyes dropped to the source of a strange sound. Drops fell from the man's tiptoes and gathered in a small puddle under him. For some reason, there was a notebook lying in the puddle. The moment I saw it, I felt intense electric currents running through my brain. On the notebook's front cover, in blurry yet clear letters, was written, Ryoko Otonashi's memory notebook. So another death. This time, right out in the public. Right in the open square. Cool. Okay. So, again, because I have the length of chapters next to me, well, I can see when one chapter starts and one chapter ends based on the thing next to me. Chapter 6 is a long one, so I'm going to end the video here. The length of these videos is going to be probably weirdly inconsistent because some of the again, the last chapter seems to be about 100 fucking pages, so it's going to be a 3-hour video that I'm going to have to set aside time to do. I will end it here because if I continue going, I feel like this is going to get to an hour and a half because what I'm looking at for Chapter 6, it seems to be the length of Chapter 4 and 5 combined. So, I'll end it here. Next episode will probably be exclusively Chapter 6. So, shit is happening. So, I'm struggling to remember what Azuru did. Because we know it's Azuru. We know Azuru is the person who killed the 13 other students. Did we hear about that during Danganronpa 2 or not? Because I remember hearing about Azuru, how he was cultivated for hope, and then this happened, and he started working with Junko and all of that stuff. And we heard that the reserve course ended up starting a parade, and then we know eventually they killed themselves. I don't remember if we found out that the reason the parade started was because Azuru killed 13 students, and they realized it was Azuru saying, "You're using us as fucking guinea pigs." I can't remember that. But yeah, so Azuru's killed 13 people at this point. Well, we're assuming it's Azuru. Maybe the person who's comatose helped or something. Because it's weird that Azuru left someone alive. So something's happening with that. They're trying to extract memories to work out how it happened. But at this point, like, they're focusing on covering it up and going, we can't let this get out. While the parade is currently happening, like, the parade is what leads to shit getting fucked up in this situation. The parade and everyone killing themselves leads to, like, national news things. It leads to, I think it's the parade killing themselves that leads to tragedy spreading around the world, which leads to the few people left in the school locking themselves inside of the school. So, it's once the parade commits mass suicide that it leads them to doing all of this, so... Yeah, this is, they're focusing on the wrong thing here. Like, they're trying to cover it up while they've got about 2,000 students who are screaming about it in the, just the open air of the school. Yeah, so there's that. And we're focusing a lot on Ryuko. And now the fact that someone's dead and involved with her, Ryuko's important to this in some aspects. So, that'll be a thing too. Yeah, not sure what to make of Ryoko so far. Like, she's clearly important. Like, we know Matsuda's important because he fucks with the memory, and He's clearly either already currently working with Junko or ends up working with Junko later or something, or his technologies or abilities used for Junko's purposes to make Danganronpa 1 happen. But I'm just not sure whether he's doing that right now or not. Where Ryuko ties into all of this is where I'm just like, that I'm curious about at this stage. How does she tie into the rest of it? Because she has to, otherwise she wouldn't be a focus. I can understand her being the focus of a previous chapter before to just be like, explaining, oh, like, Matsuda's already been fucking with people in their memories and that's why, like, he's evil and doing all that stuff. But the fact that someone's dead with Ryuko is like, okay, she's clearly important to despair spreading. And I'm just like, mentally mapping that in my head. So anyway, next episode, we will find out what the fuck happens with the person who has been hung and clearly killed, like, their body's bleeding and stuff. So I'm going to guess they were killed and then hung or hung and then stabbed a bunch or something. We'll find out about those exciting things on the next episode. So until then, this is version 2, signing out.